Don't take every single gig you're offered. Done. Video over. You can tune off. No, I'm just kidding. Nobody teaches this. How to not hate yourself as a career musician. Well, what is the deal about this? If you actually ask and engage with a lot of musicians, you'll find some really common themes. Burnout is quite high, a little bit of depression, a little bit of emotional anxiety. And yes, I know what you're thinking. Hey, they're musicians, they're artists, of course. There's the whole tortured artist thing. But honestly, I think this comes to the fact that we get very little business advice and very little ideas of how to actually manage our careers beyond just general aphorisms that are thrown about, but not very much real core information. So let me give you some real core information that I think will be helpful to you. And that is specifically on the topic of what gigs you should say yes to versus what gigs you should say no to. This could be a band to join, or this could be an opportunity, a performance opportunity. So let's talk about what things are going to work really, really well. The first one is going to be if the money is good. Now, it's vague on purpose. Why is it vague? Well, when you are just starting out, money being good could be they're covering your gas. Money being good could be they're feeding you. But as you get older, as you get more experience, as real life starts piling on and you actually have responsibilities and you got kids and a wife and you need to provide for them, then that might change and it might become $100, $300, $500, $1,000 for some people. These are all things you need to consider when you're asking yourself, is the money good? Does it make sense? You also have to think about the expenses involved with playing the gig. Maybe it's a really high paying gig, but it's 8 hours away. Maybe they don't provide hotel rooms. Maybe you have to drive yourself. Maybe you have to learn hours upon hours of new music. Take all of that in mind. You can't just in a vacuum go, it pays well, I got this. No, you have to take all these expenses in mind. I could break down that stuff at a later date. If you're interested, you could leave a comment about specifics when it comes to money and budgeting for gigs. But for now, let's go on to category number 2 of a reason to take a gig. And that is if the hang is good. What do I mean by this? It could be buddies that you've known your entire life and you love playing and working with them. It could be just new people and a new crowd that you think may be a good crowd for you to be involved in. Like-minded people, just chill people, whatever it is. If the hang is good, that may be a good enough reason to take the gig. The third one is going to be fulfilling music, or it's growing you musically. Now, those are kind of 2 different categories. Let me break them down a little bit. Fulfilling music may be music that you really deeply enjoy. So the most obvious version of this would be like if you like making original music, you may decide to play a gig that pays you nothing. You may even lose money on it. But because you're playing your own music, that's fulfilling. And so therefore, you're willing to take the gig. But that's not the only fulfilling music. Maybe you love playing salsa music. Maybe you love playing jazz. Maybe you want to do a classical recital, even though the money's not there and you're playing by yourself, so the hang is irrelevant. The other side of this is maybe you want to expose yourself to something that you're not used to. Maybe actually you really have never done a gig where you're playing with tracks, right? Playing with a metronome in your ears. So you decide to take a gig doing that. Maybe you are a poor sight reader and you get an opportunity. The money is fine. The people are fine. But you get to work on your sight reading chops playing with an orchestra or something like that. That may be worth it. It may not be fulfilling yet, but it's a growth opportunity. It's a place that you can grow into. Now, if you get a gig that has all 3 of these, good money, the hang is amazing. Wow, I can't speak. And you're fulfilling yourself musically, then what are you waiting for? Of course you take that. But what tends to happen is people take too many gigs where only one of these is true, or 0 of them are true. And why do people take these gigs? Well, I think most musicians have two things going on. They first have imposter syndrome, which is they don't think that they actually know how to do things as well as they should. They feel like, oh, I'm not as good as I am. I'm not as far into my career as I am. All these different things. They plague most musicians. And that's for a variety of reasons we can get into at some point. But that lowers our self-esteem, lowers our value, and so we think that we need to take them. The other thing is we always worry that the phone will stop ringing. And there is a lot of truth to this. Let's imagine that you have a contact. Let's say you've never done very many salsa gigs, and you get a contact that calls you for salsa gigs. You take one, the money was fine, the hang was fine, it was new music to you, so it filled all 3 categories. Boom, it's great. A year goes by, you've done 4 or 5 gigs with them, and then they call some more. They actually start to lose their regular guys, so now they're filling you in. You're getting more and more gigs. Your schedule's filling up. The money's not making as much sense anymore. The people are getting kind of annoying, and you don't actually care too much to play salsa music. So these are all changing. Now you start to go, should I keep doing this? But what you realize is the person who's leading the band is really connected to many, many other musicians. Well, this is where musicians really start to worry. If I say no to this gig, then they're going to stop calling me in general. There is a nugget of truth to that. If you're not seen by people, if people don't know you and don't see you, then yes, they're not going to call you. And if you're on their list, but you always say no, then they're just going to skip you and they're going to go to the next person. How do you prevent this from ruining your career? Well, you become picky, but you also become realistic. So for some people, there may be an opportunity where you go, okay, it meets one of these categories. It's good money, but I don't like the people and it's no fun to play, but I need the money. So I'm just always going to say yes because this is my person. They get me the gigs. I got this. Then you just got to say yes, but be realistic. What you may realize is, you know what? 5 years from now, I don't want to play any salsa gigs. And if that's you, it's not me. I love salsa. But if that's you, then you just go, okay, I'm going to tell them no. And guess what? Maybe I burned that bridge. Maybe it's gone. Don't burn bridges if you can. Be nice, be kind, be professional. Most people understand if you bring up these reasons. If you know it's about the money, make it about the money. If it's not about the money, it's your schedule, then be honest with them. Hey, I got a new kid. I got more responsibilities. I'm trying out this other thing. Most people will understand that. There are some that will give you a hard time no matter what you say. Let's really quickly push on one other strategy to get out of gigs, and that is just raising your price. And you may go, wait a second, I'm going to piss people off if I keep raising my price. Here's the truth. If you are a high quality musician, and I should have probably prefaced this by get your act together and be a professional before any of this, because if you aren't a professional before any of this, then you don't get a say. You don't get an opinion about any of this. If you are not a professional already, it's not going to work. You can't be picky. You have to take what it is. But let's say you're a professional, you show up on time, you kill your part, you're just crushing it, you're nice to everybody. Just raise your price. If you don't like a gig, just raise your price. Because one thing will happen. Either they'll say yes, and then it's good money. So who gives a rip? You don't like it. You don't like the people. Who cares? It's good money. Just take the gig. Or you're going to be so expensive that they're going to be like, we can't afford you. Well, what did you just do? You actually increased your reputation, not decreased it. Again, be realistic. Don't out of the blue, you've only been playing $50 gigs and you're like, I'm worth $1,000 a gig. Makes no sense. But you're playing events, it's like $400 an event, and you're like, you know what? For $600, I could totally do it. $400, I'm not feeling it. You'll be surprised. Some people will be like, $600, no problem, I got you. And then other people will be like, hey, I know you're worth $600, but I just can't do that right now. So we're going to pick somebody else. But if we get a big event coming our way, we're going to call you. And then it's a win-win. What does this all do with mental health? Well, the more you value yourself and what you're doing, the more you're going to have these boundaries in place, and they're going to keep you a little more sane. You're also going to have time off, which is another huge problem with musicians. They don't value having time off. They think every weekend night, especially, but every night, if I'm not gigging or rehearsing, I'm doing something wrong. That's just not true. It's okay to have a life outside of music. It's true. Maybe not in your 20s, but in general, it's okay to have a life outside of music. The final piece to this is, just because you love music, and I love music too, doesn't mean you can't keep forcing yourself to be like, I think I like this, when the money's not good, the hang's not good, and the music is not music you like. Just be honest with yourself. Move on. It will be okay. People will still call you. You'll still get work. It's gonna be okay. I'm Robert Monroe. If you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe. It super helps. And until next time, comment below. Do you use this category to decide what gigs you do? Do you have some other category system to figure it out? I'd love to know. And until next time, have a great day.